Welcome to Oxford Plus, the podcast focused on innovation around Oxford. We look at everything across the ecosystem, the institutions, the people, the technology. If you need to learn anything about Oxford, whether it's how to take a first step in through the door, or as an experienced investor wanting to go deeper, this is the podcast for you. Innovation drives growth, but too often access to opportunity is uneven, leaving talent, ideas, and communities underrepresented in the ecosystems that shape our future. Enter Equinox, Equitable Innovation Oxford, a new initiative designed to ensure that innovation in Oxfordshire is inclusive, accessible, and opportunity-rich for all. By connecting diverse founders, researchers, and stakeholders, Equinox aims to strengthen the local innovation ecosystem and amplify the impact of Oxfordshire's world-class research and enterprise. Our guest today is Olga Kozlova, one of the driving forces behind Equinox. Olga brings deep experience in innovation strategy, ecosystem building, and stakeholder engagement, having worked across universities, startups, and research-intensive organizations to connect people, ideas, and resources. In this conversation, we'll explore why Equinox was formed, how it will operate, and the ways it is expected to benefit both innovators and the broader Oxfordshire ecosystem. We'll also dig into Olga's own journey, her perspective on inclusive innovation, and how carefully designed networks can transform both opportunity and impact. This is a discussion about equity, collaboration, and how making innovation accessible to more people can strengthen Oxfordshire and the UK's role in driving the next generation of breakthrough ideas. Olga, thank you so much for joining today. Equinox, Equitable Innovation Oxford. Why was it formed? What was the gap?
When I arrived to Oxford, which is 3 years ago, and got acquainted with the innovation ecosystem here, I realized that it's the most messy, decentralized, brilliant place, which I think ecosystems should be messy. I think I completely agree with this. But when you want to make a real impact, when you want to compete with places like Kendall Square, Silicon Valley, Singapore, Shenzhen in China, you really need to speak as a united voice. And that's one of the reasons that Equinox was formed. What we needed was to bring together the Quadruple Helix, the industry partners, the universities, the local authorities, the communities behind one vision, what Oxfordshire innovation ecosystem could be. To make sure that we remain competitive, to make sure that we bring talent, we bring investment, but also to make sure that the communities around Oxfordshire sees the benefits of this beautiful research and innovation activity. So that's the reason behind Equinox coming together, and it was led by Vice-Chancellor of Oxford, Irene Tracy. She really wanted, and she put her name and time towards helping create this, and we worked really hard to bring all the stakeholders together.
So you spoke there about a unified voice, which makes a lot of sense, and that's the sort of outbound. Is Equinox also going to serve as helping clean up what you described quite correctly and fairly, I think, as kind of quite messy, quite hard to navigate? Is it going to help people on the inbound too?
Absolutely. And I think, again, when you're looking into the ecosystem from the perspective of the user, which could be a fund or somebody really interested in innovation or a company wanted to come in, you want to make it easy. In a sense, you don't want it to be a test. If you can find help, you deserve to start a business. If you can't find help, well, tough. In my view, if you imagine ecosystem as this network, I mean, I did a PhD in fungal cell biology, so I always remember all this mycelia growing together. So if that is an innovation ecosystem, you want to have a series of nodes that if you reach it, then you will be put in the right place and you'll get the right support. And this is what, in my head, Equinox can be, that series of nodes with this umbrella that speaks with a united voice, but also for those who are coming in, making it very easy. If I'm an investor and I want to invest in Oxford and find the right company, this is events I should go to. If I'm a founder, that these are the key supports at various stages. If I'm a company considering locating in Oxfordshire, this is a support I can get in terms of finding the right space or finding the connections in the university or helping with recruitment. So that's for me what Equinox is. It's a series of nodes and a really bright umbrella at the top.
And I know that you did a lot of workshops with many, many stakeholders to come to this kind of vision and to come to this branding. You touched upon there the fact that there can be quite a lot of inequality and bringing together the Quadruple Helix. The fourth one of citizenship and community has been perhaps not considered to the optimal degree that it might have been. What does Equinox mean and define as equitable innovation?
I think that was completely deliberate because particularly recently there was real focus on economic growth. We need the jobs, we need the taxable revenue, essentially. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that Oxfordshire is an attractive place to live. And that we retain people and we attract people to come into the ecosystem. We also need to understand that it's not all about PhD level jobs. A lot of these companies, they need administrators, they need technicians, they need security staff, they need catering. There is a lot of these jobs that are associated and supporting it and make this actually a nice place to live. It's good for working, good for living, and good for playing as an ecosystem. So that's why we are leading with an equitable path, because to be fair, I think there are many models of how to do the triple helix, which is industry, academia, government well. Many universities have done it, many countries have done it. But to bring the fourth dimension of citizens, of communities, is actually, there's not that many examples, if any, across the globe of doing it well. And therefore, as Oxford, we should be developing that model. I think it's close to our hearts because we all know about the inequalities across Oxfordshire, and this needs to be addressed because otherwise people won't come with you. There are lots of infrastructural issues, the cost of housing, the transportation. We're not saying that Equinox will solve it all because for infrastructure challenges, there is Oxfordshire Growth Commission, there is many other players. But what we want to do is to provide, first of all, advocacy for this being done in a right way. And second of all, find out, what could make a difference? Is it potentially skills development that when people maybe never even walked through a university building.
Which is an amazing number of people.
Can actually remove that barriers and be exposed to say, look, I don't need a degree or I don't need a PhD, but I can be involved with it. I can be part of it.
Yeah.
Recently we've been lucky. We had 2 unicorn exit and 1 nearly unicorn in a space of just a few months. But we talk about the big exit number, $1.5 billion, which was Equinox. We talk about the jobs. But what we forget to say that Equinox helped save over 7,000 lives of people from across the spectrum. So that narrative needs to be there. And then I think there are things, and I won't pretend that we have at this stage, we just launched in November, all the answers. But there will be other things that we can help deliver that can potentially bring real benefits into communities.
Thank you. That was really clear. And I think that if I play it back to you, because I think it's very important, actually, I think that what you just articulated is that part of this naming and the choice around the use of the word equitable is around signposting the wider benefit to a broader church than perhaps either feel they benefit or that have historically benefited. The danger, and I've heard a couple of people say this, so I want to kind of give you the opportunity to answer this, with the word equitable, is it has quite a wide set of connotations, potentially. I certainly have thought, I wonder if that might spook investors who, one hopes everyone wants to raise all boats, but that's not their main investing thesis, right? They're not a kind of socially focused fund. Have you had any feedback to that degree and what it means to Equinox?
I think certainly I would agree that Organizations come around Equinox, I would say, for various reasons. For some of them, it would be very much commercial. They are looking potentially to, raise profile of Oxfordshire so we can maybe attract more large companies. But it's purely commercial reasons. I would say the majority of companies that signed up to Equinox, and I think we're sitting at about 68 who have signed the charter organizations, I think they understand that in order to be successful long term, you need to bring the communities with you, because this is your future employees. This is your current employees. This is environment in which you operate. So there are many reasons. I think companies now are a lot more aware of the importance of that environment.
Which I agree with. And I think that that's really so well articulated. I think that my point is slightly different, which is I completely agree that companies are focused on that and it's as important to their rise. Do you worry that an international investor looking for the front door to Oxford might think that's not the right front door for me if they're not a socially focused fund?
It could be. I think, I wouldn't argue that nobody ever will think that. But I think, if you're an international investor coming in, you want to make access to talent is an absolute top priority for all of them. Whether you speak to a major corporate or you're speaking to a major investment fund, all they talk about is, well, what's your access to talent?
Yeah.
And you can't solve that without making Oxfordshire a good place to live.
Yeah.
On the opposite, when you talk about that we're Equitable Innovation Oxford and we are looking to, make inward investment easier and more attractive into Oxfordshire, and you talk about the equitable business, they're all really, really interested.
Good. You're not ordinary. No 9-to-5, meal deal lunches, meetings about meetings, compulsory team building, or living for the weekend. You're made for more, for the extraordinary, and you need an extraordinary bank. HSBC Innovation Banking exists exclusively to help visionary, VC-backed tech and life science businesses achieve their ambitions. From pre-seed to IPO, unicorn, and beyond, they provide custom solutions co-created by actual industry experts to help you scale, delivered by a dedicated team you can call whenever you need to. I know that you're at the early stages, so I won't hold you to this, but you've touched upon quite lightly some of the ways that you think Equinox is going to work day to day. You spoke about the 68 members. I'd love to understand a little bit more about the type of people that have joined so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd love to understand how you see in the next few months what you can offer those signatories to the charter as you evolve.
That's a brilliant question, because we've been thinking, while we're developing, and like you said, we spoke to a lot of people while we were trying to definitely co-create what Equinox is. I will talk you through. We have 4 work streams. They are around investors, and by that I mean people who will invest into our spin-out startup companies and companies across. We have a work stream on corporates, which is all about companies. We have a work stream on developers, which wants to make sure that there are right spaces across Oxfordshire for companies to start and grow. And we have communities. Each of these work stream have a group of leads who basically help make Equinox live and who are our operational board. So the investor work stream is led by Ed Bassi from Oxford Science Enterprise, Mari Gibbs from Oxford University Innovation, and Tim Haynes from Abingworks Capital. We have Sarah Haywood from Advanced Oxford and representative of Harwell, Seb Johnson, who are leading our corporate work stream. Anna Strongraman from OUD and Artyom Korolov from Minchin Street. We also have EIT, which is Ellison Institute of Technology. We have BMW signed up. We have Moderna. We have Oxford Brookes University. We have smaller companies who have signed up for it. So there is a real broad church. I think there is a lot of buy-in into the idea of Equinox, and people talk about it, which is one of the better things. So in terms of what we're planning, So during the consultations, we have several priorities that have emerged. One of them, for example, is the creation of Inward Investment Unit for Oxfordshire, an honest broker with a central Oxford presence, a physical presence, which could help companies if they want to come in, but could also proactively maybe target some of the companies we'd like to see in the county and in the city. So that's one. And this is a really big ticket item. It will require further funding. And at the moment, we're trying to figure out how could we fund it, what funding pots we could apply for it. It's a long-term piece of work. There are smaller pieces of work, like we would like to create a calendar of events that is publicly open and that people can come in, and to have a joint narrative, essentially that anybody who is internationally can have a set of slides and figures and basically say, well, if you talk about Oxfordshire, that's what we're about. So it's materials and collateral that people can easily use. We obviously have announced a partnership with NatWest to do regional Accelerator, and this is what we're really keen, because we're very much aware that there is a lot of support for spin-outs and startups of the universities. But if you're not connected to the universities, there isn't the same support for founders. So NatWest Accelerator is open to everybody. And the whole point is that we can support and create environment for these founders to flourish. So these are I would say the top priorities. On the community side, the things I've mentioned, the narrative, the skills agenda, this is what we're currently developing, because as I said, there isn't an existing model and we want to get it right. So what we didn't want is to announce something that maybe isn't really what is needed, or something that we have no chance to deliver, because the whole ethos of Equinox is delivery. We want to deliver the practical things that will make a difference. So that is a piece of work. And I said, I've mentioned some of the areas is in process.
And I love hearing that it's going to be the sort of practical and the action-based, because it can be very valuable to have a paper produced that sort of substantiates what's needed. But often I think there's a lot of replication of that work and not enough of the action. So I'm really pleased to hear that and excited to see it. Who would you like more of in the community? You said there are 68. There's obviously been amazing take-up. You spoke about some of the people there. Are there people, not necessarily by name, but types that you think, we'd like more of those? It's obviously meant to be outside of just the university, but probably the people within the community have known about it first. Mm-hmm. Who's missing?
I think we certainly have been working with membership organizations like Advanced Oxford. We're working, for example, with Before. Well, what we want is to make sure that smaller businesses are also represented, and then we understand what their difficulties are, because, ultimately the SMEs are the backbone of the UK economy. We need to be realistic of it. A few more, I suppose, innovative, growth, scalable companies we'd like to see couple of them, but we're also working proactively to make sure that NHS is a partner for us. So that is currently work in progress. But ultimately, what I will say is Equinox is a coalition of the willing. We're not looking to kind of tick everybody on the map. We want people who come here with open hearts, wanting to do something.
Whether you're a founder, a scale-up, or an established technology business, success takes more than good numbers and a great idea. It takes the right partner working alongside you. That's why so many Oxfordshire businesses turn to James Cooper Creston. For over 20 years, they've been a respected and trusted part of the Oxfordshire ecosystem, supporting organisations with tailored, forward-thinking advisory, accountancy and taxation services, plus a range of other specialist support covering audit, payroll, corporate finance, business planning, and more to support throughout the entire life cycle of a business. What makes them different? They take time to understand your journey, your goals, and the story behind your numbers, offering clarity, insight, and informed practical guidance exactly when you need it. And with the reach of Creston Global, they'll help you connect with the right opportunities locally, nationally, and internationally, so that your business can grow, thrive, and truly maximize its potential. To find out how James Cooper Creston can support your next stage of growth, visit jamescoopercreston.co.uk. On a more sort of granular level, and thinking about the audience for Oxford Plus, and it's kind of interesting because I started Oxford Plus very much in response to some of the lack of transparency that you've touched upon. Obviously, not going anywhere near as deep as what you're about to go into, but I really share your view on transparency, people understanding how to come in. It's good for the ecosystem. What benefits specifically do you hope that Equinox is going to bring to founders and startups if they were listening? What do you hope to be able to offer them?
What Equinox really wants to offer, I suppose, is, I would say, three things. First is that way of finding the right support in an efficient way. So in a sense, whether you're looking for premises or you're looking for a seed round of investment, or whether you want to access just maybe some advice through mentorship or a peer group, that through the offering kind of original Accelerator being highly visible, you can get to the right people. So that's one. So I think that navigation is my number one. My number two is we need more investors on the ground. I think Oxford Science Enterprise is brilliant to have them, and they're an important player, but we need a much stronger business angel community. Onion is part of the offering, but we just need a lot more, because not everybody's going to build a unicorn, which is more forward VC model. But there could be some really, really good scalable companies in there, and they need that business angel capital. So Oxford Venture Angels, the initiative that David Ford is leading, is really brilliant for companies that need that kind of business angel capital. So access to capital is the second one. And I suppose the third one is a network. Essentially, that's what Equinox can come in. I've been an entrepreneur, I've been a founder. It's a lonely place to be. And I think having that peer groups that is easily accessible, people who maybe haven't created a unicorn yet, but maybe a couple of years ahead of your journey, so you can really relate to what they've been through. I think that's probably three things that Equinox can quite easily offer.
I like what you say about the peer group, and interestingly, it's come up in other conversations recently. I too have really benefited from that. And so I think that point around cohorting people that are sort of a little bit ahead and can give you guidance, but also people that are at exactly the same stage, it's just so valuable. And I think people bring in mentors, but actually a peer group can be really just as useful. I don't think it's an either or necessarily. You've touched upon the fact that people have done the triple Helix, but that you guys are breaking new ground with this fourth. How do you hope that's going to impact the way other ecosystems around the UK evolve?
I think a lot of people are trying to do this. I worked in Glasgow, and they really were keen because, again, the innovation district I was working there on was in between the university, very affluent area on one side and very, very deprived area on the other side. So I think they were trying kind of to think, well, how do you create this more equal society, essentially. So I think many people are trying to do it, but as I said, I don't think there is a model. And I think Oxford is brilliant in developing these new things. I mean, we are, I would say, the best university in the world, and I think we also have the breadth of expertise because our humanities and social sciences are just as strong as our medical sciences and physical sciences. So I think we as a university can really support it and help develop it, bringing our expertise together. What I would like to do, and I'm quite ambitious, I'd like to create a model that will be replicated across the world. That's what I think my aim is. But I also want a practical benefit to the communities around here. We work very closely with BMW, and the majority of their staff lives in Blackbird Leys, which is one of the most deprived areas. And a lot of them never went to universities, but this is really important for them. It's an incredibly important group, and we're actually talking with them quite closely of, well, what would benefit their workforce. We're also looking at Oxford's impact beyond just the southeast of England. Obviously, we have global aspirations, but also we have collaborations with Birmingham. We're working on collaboration with Liverpool to make sure that there is a benefit across the UK. We've done an economic assessment, I think, but last year, and what we found that 37% of the university's economic impact is actually outside the south east of England.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that's already, because it's already happening. But I think what we want to do is to create much more kind of visible and much more, again, productive relationships with other kind of regions within the UK. And then, there is a global impact. As I said, I want it to be copied across the world.
And I think to the point that we were touching upon earlier of signposting to a broader church that they are going to be beneficiaries and hopefully making that more. I like that you looked up that number, or that you researched that number, because when I was working on the pension capital reforms, there was a sense that the Golden Triangle was very kind of reductive in its benefit to the UK. And actually, when we did the numbers, that was not the case at all. There was huge benefit to the wider UK, but the perception can be very, the South benefit and other places don't. And I think the more that can both not be the case through initiatives such as this, but also that we can break some of that perception where it's already not quite a fair reflection, it's really important to do both. You've spoken a bit there about your ambition, so you've partially kind of touched upon this, but how would you measure success more locally? We were talking about the ambition to scale it elsewhere, but in 5 or 10 years, what do you hope is going to have come from Equinox?
I think what I'd like, and I'll be honest with you, a few things. One is that we do land 3, 4, 5, whatever corporates within Oxfordshire. And what I also would like is to see a diversity of sectors, because we're quite dominant by life science, and I think that can continue. But having companies in other areas being there, tech, I think that'd be good to have that diversity of presence. So that's one.
And I think there's quite a good opportunity there with the government's industrial strategy.
Absolutely.
What's going on in defence?
I think defence, quantum, for example, is one of the biggest. AI is another one, and Oxford is a world leader. It's achievable, and I think the also Oxcam corridor and the light it shows will definitely help in that ambition. So that's one. I think what I would like to do is to see a lot more diverse church of investors having boots on the ground in Oxford, and a very strong business angel community. And what personally I've been working with a couple of people from the ecosystem to see more female investors.
Yeah. It's still so underrepresented.
It's so low, and I think there are so many women out there with very successful corporate careers or women who could bring so much to this table, both in terms of funding, but also in terms of their expertise. So that'd be brilliant to see. And I think what I also would like to see as part of this success is that the inequality in Oxford shrinks. I think it's 13 years age difference, from
I think I quoted 12 this morning. Just so that everybody at home knows what we're talking about. We're talking about 12 years difference in average life expectancy from one side of Oxford to the other, which is just shockingly wide compared to any other region.
Yeah. If we can bring it down by 5 years, that'd be brilliant to me.
That's so ambitious, Olga.
I think, look,
I love it. I love it.
But I think
and it's so measurable. So
we need to aim high. I mean, I think I've learned very early in my career, you need to be ambitious, because then you might not quite get there, but you still will get a bit quite high. If you just aim for something mediocre, you're going to get mediocre. So I think that's what we want to achieve.
Absolutely. And Olga, I'd love to just understand, you touched upon your experience as an entrepreneur, you've been an academic, you've worked in networks, you're now taking on this role as a civil servant we were talking about before the recording started. I'd love to understand a little bit about what's motivating you and how your experience and your career to date has brought you to this point.
It's a long story and a short story. So I came to the UK in 1999 and did a PhD in the University of Edinburgh. And what I discovered during my PhD years that I loved my science, but what I really liked is application of science. And I was really lucky to do some projects with industry. And I thought, that's really where I want to be. So then started a business after the PhD, biotech, raised money. A lot of these things don't become successful. So I closed the business and then looked for a role which was connecting this business and academia with some government support. And then ended up advising spin-out companies from one of the Scottish universities. And then I suppose my next trip into entrepreneurship was to create a company creation program for all 18 Scottish universities called Converge. And it basically helped staff and students explore commercial potential of their ideas and start businesses. So I founded it. I ran it for 8 years. It's still running, now 14 years down the run. And it has trained 500 founders and created 300 companies.
Wow.
And then went to Glasgow, worked in the economic development and ran a tech transfer office, essentially, in investment functions for the University of Strathclyde. And then got approached by Oxford to come and join them as Director of Innovation and Engagement within Oxford University. So that's what brought me here. I suppose what brought me to Equinox is I kind of have a broad range of kind of expertise in that innovation, knowledge exchange. That
you really
Helix.
do. I mean, it's hard to almost imagine a better CV for what you're doing now, actually.
Yes. And
maybe some government procurement work. Maybe that's the only... But now you're training...
I'm ticking that now.
You're ticking that box. So, you're reverse engineering it. It's excellent.
But I think my biggest thing, I believe universities are a force for good.
Yeah.
And I believe that they are no longer ivory towers. I believe that they are absolute catalysts for regional growth, but they're also inclusive growth.
Yeah.
And that's why I am very passionate about Equinox. I put my heart and soul, and I think Irene has been an amazing champion for it, and it's been just a joy and pleasure to work with her on this one. And I just want to see it succeed.
And it's really interesting to hear you talk about that phrase, ivory towers, the dreaming spires, all these things that are deeply inspiring because of the excellence here can almost in the same breath be terribly intimidating and can make it feel like it's not for everyone. And I think that in so many ways, the university, the intellectual elites more broadly are breaking down some of those barriers. In physical space, we've now got public spaces being designed so that physically new buildings being built both by the university but also science parks have that sense of being more accessible, more for use by the broader community, which I love. But I think that this is such an important initiative because there is still a sense, and we spoke about it earlier, but you'll speak to people in Blackbird Leys that have never been into the centre of Oxford. It's hard to fathom. For anyone listening that's not in Oxford, we're talking about a physical space of about 4 miles. And I think that all of this idea that it's not for us, it's for them, town versus gown, I'm really excited that you are going to be demonstrating the way in which it is for everyone, even if everyone might not end up with a degree from Oxford.
And I think your perception also changes certainly when I had my children. And what you want is for them to have opportunity. And that opportunity being easily accessible. So part of me thinks, well, when I started my business, I literally knew nothing. My parents don't come from a business background. I never studied it. And I was very, very fortunate to get like a scholarship of the Royal Society of Edinburgh, which came with training on business. And I started thinking, well, if at our schools I would have been exposed to some very simple things on entrepreneurship, that could have made a real difference, could really have accelerated. And that's what I think we need. I think we're entering times which will be hard. You can talk about geopolitical challenges, climate, you name it. There's many challenges. AI is going to disrupt the world as we know it. We need to prepare our children from across the spectrum to be resilient, to spot an opportunity, to not be scared of failure, to learn, to work as a team, to learn to talk to people, to form the networks, because that's what they would need going forward. And to be honest, entrepreneurship is one of these things that teaches you all. I mean, I honestly tell people, my business was not successful, but it was the best learning experience I could have had. And it absolutely catapulted my career. Everything I did afterwards was based on that. And I just want more people from all backgrounds, particularly our children, to have access to something like this.
And I think about this all the time with what is it we need to equip our children with. I think most parents do, to your point. And that adaptability feels like the core pillar, because so many areas of depth that have been a skill in themselves are going to become commoditized by AI. And therefore it is just, how do you move across? How do you think? How do you pull threads together? And yeah, I think that's really exceptionally well put. And if you ever work out the answer for that, let me know, because I'm terrified about how we prepare our children for the world. Olga, thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation and learning more. Certainly, I feel that you've really clarified certain things for me, and I hope for anyone listening that they've really learned a lot too.
Thank you very much, Susannah. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Oxford Plus, presented by me, Susannah de Jager. If you want to stay up to date with all things Oxford Plus, please visit our website, oxfordplus.co.uk, and sign up for our newsletter so you never miss an update. Oxford Plus was made in partnership with Mishcon de Rare and is produced and edited by Story 94.